Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? I am so happy to be here with the administration of Anytime University. For y'all who do not know me, my name is Nicole Fogel. I am the Chief Financial Officer, and today's meeting is an opportunity for me to discuss with you the current funding situation for our university. I'll be talking about funding in general and then funding more specifically how it affects us, our dollars, our cents, and our budget. So let's go ahead and get started with the presentation for today. As I was stating, talking about funding, I was able to do some research and I wanted to explain to you some interesting information that I came across. Mr. Paul LeBlanc is the president of Southern New Hampshire University, much similar to us, had outlined the numerous problems facing higher education today in an interview with the National Association of Independent Schools. Mr. LeBlanc noted in this interview that state divestment decreased employer confidence and student concern for paying for their education was three key concerns facing most higher education institutions, just like we are facing these concerns. One common issue that is facing the sector of post-secondary and higher education today is state appropriation and federal funding. Mr. LeBlanc expanded upon this major issue in the interview, and he stated some interesting facts by explaining that divestment of state funding and some federal dollars are probably gone and will never really get back to the previous levels that they were originally. And that is very interesting and concerning, but it also opens up an opportunity for us to look at how can we impact our students' education. Whether a school is for-profit, nonprofit, private, or public, identifying alternative methods of funding has become a critical issue for higher education administrators, board of trustee members, faculty, staff, and students, most importantly. As we know, without funding and appropriations, colleges and universities will not be able to meet the needs of students. And so it is important for us to tackle this issue at hand. And so when I look at that, I wanted to say, how do we do that? Well, one critical way of doing that is expanding the relationships that we have between higher education, the government, and corporations. This could be a very valuable resource and tool for us to improve funding for our students and improve the dollars per student that we can utilize to help them as they work to reach their educational goals. During this presentation, I will review current and new alternative funding methods such as corporate sponsorships, joint instruction, apprenticeships, shared FTE, and virtual campuses. With that said, let's get started. Today's presentation is titled Proposed Funding Options, Expanding Funding for Anytime University. Slide 2. Today's presentation's themes will be the history of funding for colleges and universities. We will also discuss performance funding and new and alternative funding or innovative funding, which will include corporate sponsorships, joint instruction, apprenticeships, shared FTE, and virtual campuses. Slide 3. 20 years ago, 80% of funding came into colleges and universities from state appropriations. 20 years ago, students paid tuition, but students' shared costs was around 15 to 20%. Now these scales has flip-flopped, and students have a bigger share in paying their tuitions. 20 years ago, budgets were built on the model of states normally funding fixed rates first, then enrollment, and then outcomes. With the change in models in education, many educational professionals believe this model needs to be reversed, where outcomes is funded first, then enrollment, and then fixed costs. Slide 4. Another big expense that colleges have is compensation or salaries. Tess and Tenderberg explain that compensation or salaries are the largest expense in the operational budget. Colleges and universities could improve their operational budgets by identifying alternative options in funding and work on decreasing their liabilities. One option for decreasing their liabilities is looking at their fixed or variable costs, which could include deferred renovations, reduced travel funds, outsource specific operations, or share purchasing agreements. Looking at decreasing variable costs will be one way we can increase funding dollars that could be available to spend on student experience. Slide 5. The National Association of State Budget Officers recently stated that higher education administrators must investigate alternative avenues of funding to address changes in state appropriations and federal funding. They further noted that students no longer have the discretion not to obtain a higher education degree to increase their employability and compete in the current economy. Unfortunately, the funding model today is going in the opposite direction, and higher education is becoming unaffordable as states no longer can allocate funds at the level that they did in the past. Let's talk about performance funding. Performance funding is defined as a matter of formula that pegs the level of funding to institutions' performance on set indicators. Currently, several states continue to rely on performance funding to allocate relatively small percentages of funding dollars into their higher education institutions. And states now distribute much larger percentages of funding dollars by using performance metrics such as retention and the number of graduates at the end of a collective year. Performance management policies to improve the results of colleges and universities with using outcomes include performance-based funding, performance budgeting, and performance reporting. We'll look more in depth of the difference because these three items are different. Slide 7. Performance funding programs use set formulas to determine annual allocations based on institutional outcomes along several matrices such as retention,
or number of graduates. Performance budgeting allows state officials to consider campus achievement and use their discretion when making appropriations. And it also requires colleges and universities to report information on outcomes to the public without affecting state funding. Performance funding has rapidly been adopted across states. Larger percentages of funding is allocated by using performance funding formulas. A shift from supplemental awards to allocating base allocations has also occurred. Performance funding has been the bedrock of how education received state and federal dollars. But with that decrease in the level of these dollars, schools and administrators are going to have to identify alternative means of continuing to fund educational goals for the institution and students. Slide 8. Some key strategies for increasing available dollars for our institution is looking at the 2017 performance measures. If we could increase our numbers to the college average level, this would improve performance funding by $56,000 annually. Or we could increase our dollars by $140,000 annually if we improved our numbers to the base excellence level rate. Key strategies shared at the 2017 Performance Partnership Summit on how community colleges in North Carolina could look at improving their performance funding centered around the Performance Funding Committee being able to implement key strategies that has been extremely successful in other colleges. I recommend us identifying a performance funding committee and looking at some of these strategies. Slide 9. Some strategies for increasing our available dollars from the Performance Fund would be creating a transfer center and make it available to all students. Creating a virtual transfer center for all students. Having ACA 111 and ACA 122 review courses in Moodle that remain available to students the whole time that they are enrolled in the college. Working with AAS programs to create pre-majors or pathways. Doing these strategies could dramatically improve our curriculum completion rate from the current 39.1% to the 59.1%, raising us to the excellence level and increasing our performance funding dollars by $140,000 annually. Slide 10. Corporate sponsorship would be a key advantage for us to help us gain dollars in a different format than just performance funding. Corporate sponsorships would allow us to move to a base plus targeted investment model where we could receive targeted funding dollars from corporate sponsorships to use in targeted programs and initiatives. These dollars that we receive from corporate partners could also help fund specific initiatives or action plans outlined by the Performance Funding Committee, starting with implementing a transfer center and then the virtual transfer center. Also, our corporate partners could also participate in various advisory committees for technical programs and even the newly formed advisory committee for college transfer to help ensure instruction is current and relevant as we are preparing students for today's competitive labor market. Slide 11. Another alternative innovative funding option could be apprenticeships. We could join with the consortium that include the Dream Academy and Champion University that would allow Anytime University to form apprenticeship programs with local businesses and industry to meet the county's Economic Development Committee's 2017 initiative, which included increased skilled labor for specialized trainings and such programs as biomedical, biotechnical, and computer integration technology fields. Also, increase the skilled labor for specialized trainings in such programs as electrical systems, electronic engineering, and mechanical engineering technology. These are booming fields that would be very beneficial for our students and graduates as the job market has flourished. Slide 12. Another alternative innovative funding option is joint instruction. Faculty members at Anytime University, Dream Academy, and Champion University could help to secure funding by participating in joint instructional programs such as English Literature, which is English 111, or COM 231, which is Speech Communication, or Computer Information Systems, which is CIS 110. Faculty and students would be on Anytime University campus as the main course classroom for the hybrid classroom, and students would connect via Adobe Connect from Dream Academy and Champion University. Students from all three higher education institutions would share textbooks and equipment costs. Administrators at Dream Academy and Champion University would be able to contribute to instructors' salaries, therefore decreasing this expense for Anytime University. Slide 13. And on that note, another alternative innovative funding option is shared FTE. Joining the consortium of Dream Academy and Champion University would allow Anytime University shared FTE for classes that we are having a difficult time enrolling students: landscape gardening, collision repair and refinishing technology, and aviation career pallet management. This would allow us to increase our FTE dollars and also bring in additional funds. And please note that the college president, Dr. Porch, has petitioned the Board of Trustees to yet do another avenue where he is requesting that the divisor be changed from 512 to 320. If this happens, this would bring in an additional $585,000 annually for the college budget. Slide 14. Virtual campuses is yet another innovative funding option. Joining the consortium of Dream Academy and Champion University would allow Anytime University to meet with state legislators to request for a $5 million bond to build the new state-of-the-art technology center to monitor servers for the new virtual campus. Seeking funding for a virtual campus instead of a new building or facility is truly flexible innovation.
In conclusion, addressing the major concern of decreased funding at state and federal levels will require us at Anytime University to be innovative and flexible in our approaches. To recap how to address this critical issue facing higher education institutions, the administration, Board of Trustees, faculty, staff, and students will need to be flexible. Current and new alternative funding methods such as corporate sponsorships, joint instruction, apprenticeships, shared FTE, and virtual campuses will allow the school to increase outside funding, increase FTE, and the employability of our graduates. Lastly, expanding the relationship between higher education institutions, the government, and corporate America is the most valuable solution to ultimately increase funding to support our students as they gain much needed skills and knowledge as Anytime University faculty and staff prepare our graduates to enter the local and national labor force to impact our communities and our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time. My contact information is on my cards and at the end of this presentation. So I look forward to your feedback as we work together improving Anytime University funding and impacting our students, our community, our nation, and our country. Thank you.